What's up, Operation Sports fans? This is Coach EB back with another episode of Coach's Corner. As we start to wind down the Madden NFL 20 cycle and get ready for what Madden NFL 21 is going to bring, I still have my fingers crossed that we're going to see some significant improvements in terms of the playbooks and how to draw them up, and hopefully, although I'm not holding my breath, the ability to actually create plays from scratch, draw blocking schemes and everything. But we'll see. But regardless, we're going to get some new features, some new functionality, and it's always an exciting time. But what we're going to focus on is continuing to build our spread offense playbook, and obviously this is something that's universal. I go through the process of creating a new playbook every time a new edition comes out because I'm just kind of crazy like that. And I have a lot of fun with it, you know. It's the whole realism, everything that I really love about Madden from year to year. I get to kind of immerse myself in that all over again. But we're going to continue building our playbook. We're focusing first on the run game. That's sort of the foundation for everything for me. I am primarily a run first kind of guy, especially when I have a great running back like Ezekiel Elliott. If you don't have that luxury, or you're just more of a pass first kind of guy, hey, that's great too. And we're gonna add plenty of pass game to our playbook when we get to that point. But we're gonna go through and do run game entirely first, and talk through that. So we started with Ace and Bunch in the last episode. I explained why I'm not really focusing on Ace, even though I really, really like it. And it really comes down to I'm putting a lesser guy on the field in that second tight end and taking either my second running back or my third wide receiver off the field. And so for me, it makes more sense to have those guys on the field as opposed to that second tight end. But if I happen to draft a really good tight end and I can pair him up with Blake Jarwin and get them both on the field, then obviously Ace would be something I'd want to take a closer look at. But we're going to start with our cluster formations, and these are some really good ones. You get a lot of really good pass elements out of these, but there are also some good run elements as well, so we're going to take a look at those and add some of this to our book. So first we're starting with shotgun cluster. And cluster is simply, it's more or less a trips formation, but the trip side is snug or tight to the box. Similar to what you would see in a bunch, they're just not in that bunch alignment. So the first play you see here is a halfback counter. This is the same side counter that we talked about before. Although you look at the blocking scheme here, and it's hard to tell. A lot of these plays end up getting mislabeled for whatever reason. But this really looks, in terms of blocking scheme, more like a power play. So we'll have to get into a strategy session, which I'm doing those on my Coach EB channel, where we actually dig into these plays a little further and really try to identify what's going on. But we're going to go ahead and add that because counter or power, whichever this ends up being, is a staple play of the offense. And these same side runs are really, really good because if you're playing somebody online or one of your buddies, one of the things they really love to do is set a player opposite the back in one of those gaps, A or B gap opposite the back, because they know most of the runs are going to involve the running back crossing the quarterback's face and running to the opposite side of where he is. So if you have some of these same side runs, guys who like to do that, well, you just set a defender over there and you've just made it a lot harder for him to make a play, because now we're running back to the other side. So a lot of times they'll pull that guy from that backside and just stick him in one of those gaps or blitz him through one of those gaps. And sometimes they can make the play because these are a little slower in developing. But if you get out of there, then that's one less guy you got to worry about blocking, and you got an opportunity for a big play. So those are good ones to have. we've got a draw, and we've talked a lot about the draw and how effective it can be. I don't include it in every formation, but formations that I do a lot of passing out of, I typically go ahead and include it because it's a great second and long, third and long type of play when they're expecting you to throw the ball. Outside zone is a great scheme. Again, the assignments, the blocking assignments are exactly the same as inside zone, with the exception of the technique that the offensive line is using. So they're trying to reach block on an outside zone and try to get guys hooked to try and get you to the outside. Now, in just about every case, not every defender is going to get hooked because they're coached that when they see that offensive lineman take that flat step, that's rule number one. Don't get reached, don't get reached. So in the process of that happening, there are natural creases that open up. So you don't know where that play is going to develop, but it's a really good one to have because it's versatile and you can run it versus any front. You just have to be patient with it, understand that going in, and practice running it, because if you hit turbo immediately and just try to run like you're running some kind of a sweep or something and try to get it outside of everything, you're probably not going to get there. Okay, so again, if you want to see that in action and look at that versus a live defense, head over to my YouTube channel and check out a strategy session where we'll hammer that a lot more. And as you can see, that's it as far as run game goes from the cluster formation. But this is a heavy pass formation, and it's something I typically include in my playbook. Then we've got cluster halfback strong, which is same formation except the running back is on the opposite side, so he's on the trip side, which gives you some other possibilities. And the first one you see here is this 45 quick base, which is likely going to be what we call a one-back power. And assuming the defense is going to declare strength to that trip side and adjust to that trip side, it's a good backside run play. Then we've got a motion halfback draw, and these are already selected because they were in the game plan plays. But this is a great one to have because, as you'll see when we get into the pass game for this formation, there are some pass plays that have this same motion where that inside receivers come all the way across. So that motion is also sort of a decoy and a tip-off to the defense that, hey, they're getting ready to throw the ball, but then you come back and run this draw play, so they can't really key on that. And here's one of the plays that features that same motion. So to give you an example, that's something I always like to do, and Madden 20 does a good job, much better than we've seen in previous years of packaging plays like that. And that's something that the Rams really brought to the table as far as the NFL goes. We've done it at a high school level for years. But having multiple plays that look exactly the same to the defense before the snap, and then running those in some sort of sequence so that they can't key on any one thing. So the defense, if you have these plays packaged, they can't key and assume all the time, hey, that guy goes in motion, they're throwing the ball, because, hey, we've got a draw play that looks just like it at the snap. So when you see those opportunities as you're building the playbook, make sure to take advantage of those. Now we'll get to the doubles formations. But the doubles formations, doubles is simply, it's spread, but you're subbing a tight end for your fourth receiver. And you'll see when we get to the true spread formation, it's truly four receivers, but there are some spread formations that involve a tight end a lot more this year because the tight ends have become more prevalent. But any doubles formations, it's basically 11 personnel. So it's one tight end, one running back, 3 wide receivers, which for most people is going to be a good situation. So we'll look at this first one. This is double Y flex off week. And that simply means that it's doubles, but the Y is flexed out. So he's not really wide. He's probably about 3 or 4 yards off the tackle, but he's on the ball. And then your 3 wide receivers are positioned as you see there. And then we've got the running back in an offset position on the weak side. First play you see here is the Halfback Power. Again, this is what we would call a one-back power. Depending on how the defense is aligned, we could get that tight end involved in the blocking scheme if that defensive end is anywhere in his vicinity. But it's just a basic power play where the backside guard's pulling, so I try to include as many of those as I possibly can. Then we've got our staple inside zone. Of course, any chance we get to include that, we're going to do it because it's such, I run that probably more than any play in the entire playbook. Here's a draw, and we'll go ahead and include this because there are a lot of good pass concepts out of this formation. And then that's it. So just a few run plays, but they're staple plays, so we're going to be sure to include them. Deuce close is just it's a spread formation, but you can see they're tight to the box. We'd have to dig in and see what the personnel is on this. I think it's doubles where that inside receiver on the right side is a tight end, but I'm not certain on that. But these tight formations give you some interesting run possibilities, as you'll see here. The first play is the trap, and we talked about that in the last episode. Great play, but not great against every defense. So you have to be aware of that when you go into your game plan for that week. Here's our inside zone, and here's one of the examples of one of the neat things that you can do with these tight formations is you can run the inside zone but use an inside receiver to cross the formation and kick out the defensive end that would be red if you were running a read option. Here's counter Y. This is the same side counter, but it involves the inside receiver again. The lead read option, and so this is read option. Involves that same inside receiver, but now he's going to bypass the defensive end and go block the overhang player or the alley runner, and you're going to read the defensive end. So it's another, it looks exactly the same as that regular inside zone at the snap, but then the action is slightly different. It gives you a lead blocker should the quarterback pull the ball. And that's it for that formation. Double stack I typically don't mess with. It's got some RPO possibilities, a couple of run concepts. You know, the jailbreak screen is okay out of it. But it's just not, I'm not going to devote a chunk of my playbook to it. I just don't feel that strongly about it. Other people may disagree, but that's just me. Then you've got the base doubles formation. Again, this is 3 receivers, 1 tight end, 1 running back. It's probably the staple formation of the shotgun in this year's version. And you can see that because it's got so many plays associated with it. So we'll go in and focus on the run game first. It doesn't have a ton of run game, a lot of pass game, but the pass game out of it is really, really good. So it's a formation I always like to include. The jet sweep, which is the jet touch pass when you're running shotgun, and that just simply means the quarterback's going to soft toss it forward to the receiver. And the advantage of that is if it hits the ground, it's not a fumble, it's an incomplete pass. We started doing that at the high school level probably my last 2 or 3 years before I retired and moved back to the corporate world. But it's a great play. It's a great play in a goal line situation when the defense is going to tighten up and put everybody on the line of scrimmage. Slants is just checked off because it's a game plan play. Got a draw. We'll take that draw because we throw the ball a lot out of this formation. We've got 45 quick base. This is our one back power. Again, anytime I can find a power or an inside zone, I'm going to include it. As I said, tons and tons of pass game out of this. These deep outs on 3rd and long are great, especially if they're giving you cushion. Here's our inside zone. We've got an RPO with a zone alert. And again, alert simply means I'm counting numbers. So if I have a numbers advantage outside, I'm going to throw that screen as soon as I get the snap. If I have a numbers advantage inside, I'm going to run the zone. This one is a read, so I'm actually reading the defensive end. Tight end's going to go out and hopefully block the corner that's covering the receiver. And then it becomes more or less a triple option play. So I can hand to the running back, I can run with the quarterback, or I can throw that screen. Here's a trap. Then we've got our jet pass while we're faking the zone. So hopefully that zone holds the linebackers inside the box so that they can't turn and run with that jet sweep as soon as they see it. Then we've got the opposite. This is a great example of the package plays where they look exactly the same, but you have two different things going on. And then we have an RPO zone peak, which simply means I'm got that backside slant. So if I have some open grass on that side, I can pull the ball, throw that quick screen or quick slant. Here's doubles flex weak. So even though the diagram doesn't show it here, that flex simply means that that tight end is on the ball, but he's about 3-4 yards off that tackle. So we've got draw highlighted here. This is another formation I throw quite a bit out of. There's a read option here. We're always going to take those. We've got a same side counter, which blocking scheme wise looks like a power. We'd have to dig in and take a closer look at that. Another inside zone. And then we've got 3 RPOs. We've got the zone peak, we've got the power peak, and we've got the buck peak. So they're essentially the same play. The only difference is the blocking scheme that's going on up front. So with the zone, obviously, you're zone blocking. And this one is going to give you the least flow from the defense. So it's probably the hardest to execute of the 3. The power is going to give you some flow because you do have a backside guard pulling, but it's still more of an inside run play. My favorite of the 3 is this buck sweep peak because you get full flow from the defense. You have both guards pulling all the way around to the outside and the back sweeping. So that is naturally going to encourage the defense to want to run flat because they see the play going outside, which usually opens up that peak route quite a bit. And all you simply do is watch really that backside linebacker. If he sits at home and doesn't run with the sweep, then you're gaining an extra blocker on the buck sweep. But if he runs and chases, which he does more often than not, then you simply throw that peak route and potentially pick up some big yards. Doubles flex week Pats. It's labeled Pats, but there are a bunch of Bills plays. So it's kind of weird, but a lot of these are duplicated, and so I'm not going to devote a chunk of my playbook to it. Doubles halfback week, another one I always like to include. You got two versions of the draw here. They're basically exactly the same. We'll take one. We've got a power alert bubble. And so anytime you see alert, that simply means count your numbers. So if I have numbers inside, then I'm going to run the power. If I have numbers outside, I'm going to run the bubble screen. Inside zone. You can see a lot of pass game in this formation as well. There's a trap, and this is a little bit of a different trap because the back's on the opposite side. Most traps are going to involve the back being on the right side of the quarterback if I'm running trap right, which means the left guard's pulling. Of course, I can flip that play if I want to, which I do a lot because Zach Martin's my right guard, and I like him pulling a lot better than I like Connor Williams pulling. Then we got a bunch of RPO here. We've got a RPO Read Bubble. So we're reading to determine whether the hand, throw the bubble, or run with the quarterback. So it's a triple option play. There's our zone peak. There's our power peak that we just talked about. And then a zone alert bubble, which again, the only difference between the read bubble and this one is that in the read bubble, I'm reading post snap to determine where to go with the ball. With the alert bubble, I'm pre-snap reading, counting numbers, and determining where to go with the ball. So if I decide throwing the bubble is the best option, I'm getting it out of my hands right now, as opposed to sitting and waiting to see what a defensive end does. Doubles offset, so the back's on the opposite side, and he's offset, so he's at depth. As you can see, this is the trap that you typically see because it's more of a straight downhill, which is what you want. There's our read option, and this time we're reading to the tight end side, which is different than what we see in most cases. There's our inside zone. There's our same side counter, which kind of looks like a power. There's our power O. There's an RPO X smoke. Smoke is just a slip screen, a quick screen outside. And I'm just counting numbers to determine, even though it doesn't say alert. I can also throw that if that corner is giving a lot of depth, so he's playing really deep, and he's giving me enough cushion to do it, I can run it there as well. Then we've got outside zone, which anytime I can add that, I do that as well because it's just a play I love running. Buck sweep. This is the same side buck sweep. So buck sweep involves double guards. We call it a double G, and they're pulling all the way to the edge of the box. So this is like old school Green Bay Packers in the 60s, Vince Lombardi kind of stuff. And the same side gives you an additional advantage because you can't key on the back crossing the quarterback's face. We've got the jet pass fake zone with the complementary zone fake jet. And then later we'll add this play action off of it as well. So that's it for doubles offset. There are a lot of doubles formations, so it takes a while to go through. Doubles offset weak, so it's offset but to the opposite side. We've got a read bubble. We've got our outside zone, inside zone. Now these are some plays that are unique to this formation, and this is why I always include it, these orbits. So you've got the RPO orbit bubble. And orbit simply means that wide receiver is going to orbit behind the backfield all the way to the other side, and it more or less becomes just a swing screen over to the left side. So here I'm reading, or I'm looking at numbers, really, is what I'm doing. So he comes into orbit motion. Once he moves over, if no one goes with him, and I feel like I've got numbers to that side, I'm going to go ahead and throw that swing screen. So it's not a read per se, it's more of a pre-snap determination. Here's an opposite side trap, so we'll include that. Then we've got quite a few RPO options. We've got zone peek, power peek. We've seen those already. The alert glance, which the alerts, again, are pre-snap looks. We've got a sweep peek. Okay, that's that buck sweep peek, which is a really good play. We've got a shovel option, which we only get this in a few formations. But it's a speed option with the running back, while the tight end is sneaking underneath, and you see you've got a guard pulling, so it's more or less power blocking, and that tight end kind of trying to sneak in behind him. And we took a look at that in one of my previous Coach's Corner episodes. It takes a lot of practice to get it right. You got to be patient with it. You got to be prepared to lose yards with it, potentially fumble the ball from time to time, but if you feel like it's worth it and you want to devote the time to get good at it, it's a good play. Then you've got orbit sweep peek. This is one of my favorites, not only out of this formation, but in the entire game, because I'm going to get full flow double G buck sweep action to the right, and then I'm going to get that orbit behind it. So it really puts the defense in a bind, because they've got to decide, okay, are we going to take care of the buck sweep? Because we've got guys pulling outside and we're going to get outnumbered on the edge over there. Or do we pay attention to this orbit coming back the other way? And as you can see, you've got two receivers and a left tackle getting ready to block for him. So it really puts the defense in a bind. And more often than not, no matter what decision you make, you're going to usually get some positive yards out of it. Then there are a couple of Panther plays, and they're just RPO type of plays. You've got an orbit zone peek, which is just the zone peek with that orbit motion as an additional possibility. Then you've got a power alert bubble. So this is a really good formation to include, because it's got those orbit plays, which you don't get anywhere else. All right, so we'll end it there and pick it back up in our next episode with the two-back formations, which I will be including in this playbook because I've got two very good running backs in Zeke Elliott and Tony Pollard. If you don't have two, you may not include them, but I'm going to go ahead and include them for that very reason, because they give you some really different looks and some different things that you can do with both of those guys in the game at the same time. So we'll pick it up with that in our next episode. Appreciate you guys joining me as always. And until next time, this is Coach EB signing off.